Welcome to the November update of the Willoughby New Haven line. I've been working on a couple of projects, nothing major this last month. I will get into that in a little bit, but I've been repainting this RS3. It's an Atlas. I believe it's a yellow box. I can't remember. It might actually be a classic. I think it's a classic. It was the Alpert scheme, and I wanted to go with something a little earlier. So I'm in the middle of repainting, and I actually had a painting fiasco, and I'll show you what I used and what happened. I'm not really sure what happened, honestly, but I'll show you what I used. Not necessarily looking for people to tell me what I did wrong. I kind of feel like I've gone over enough of it as to my process, and I'm kind of stumped. I did things the way I normally do, and something just didn't work, and I'll get into the details about probably what happened. But so yeah, I'm repainting this yet again. Let me get into the details of what happened and then how I got it to this point. Still waiting on some detail parts. I'm waiting for a couple of parts to come in. I've got a single headlight, well, two of them in the front and back, and this is the double. And to make it more prototypical for this model is going to have the single headlight, and so I'm waiting for those to come in. I want to make sure that they're going to work. They're brass castings. I'm not sure exactly if they're the right ones for this model, but once I get them in, then I will start to see if I can actually do that by taking these out and see how that works. I'm a little afraid to start chipping away at the shell of this, but usually things turn out better than I anticipate when faced with some kind of challenge. And then I ordered a steam generator and steam generator intake for the short cab, so hopefully those will come in and will work as well, and it'll be a little bit more prototypical. And then there's a few other little details that I wanted to add, the brake chains and things, but I didn't want to go any farther with the painting of this until I get those pieces in, especially the headlights, because I'm not sure if I'm going to have to add putty and things to kind of clean up, depending on how I can drill these out. They're not separate pieces, they're like cast in there, so I'm going to have to kind of carve, drill, hopefully more drilling than anything by hand is kind of what I'm trying to go for. But it is a little tricky because they're double, and finding the center of that circle and getting everything out could be a challenge. So that will be, I'm not sure if that's going to make it to this update or not, whether I'll have this project finished, but let me get into a little bit of details of how I got to this point. All right, so I had initially tried to airbrush this. It was factory painted, I believe, in what you call the Alpert scheme, and I tried to airbrush it. And I remember doing some horn repair and trying to airbrush it a while ago with an old thinner that I had used, and it didn't go on well. It just kind of bubbled and sat on the top, if that makes sense, of the surface. So fast forward, I was going to start to paint it. I think I just had mixed up black acrylic that I had and used my paint thinner that I was going to, my new formula that I had used, and the same thing happened. And so I'm thinking what happened with that was either my paint thinner was bad because there was some kind of like weird growth in there, if that makes sense. It was like a mold or something, moss kind of growing. So I've since remixed a whole new formula, which should hopefully work. But I thought, maybe it's the factory paint, because I had used a previous airbrush thinner, and again, these are homemade recipes that I have made through the past. And the first one months ago just didn't work. And then when I tried to repaint this as just black on top of the orange, I thought that would work. Still the same kind of bubbling thing. So I thought it could be maybe the factory paint. I'm not sure. So I washed it off again, got it back to the factory paint, and then I went with my trusty Rust-Oleum flat primer, and that seemed to go on fine. I got everything good, and I was a little hesitant to start using rattle can on this project, but the airbrushing didn't work. I thought it could be the surface, it could be my paint thinner. I figured, let me just go with my trusted method. Even though I wasn't completely satisfied, I went with the primer. Everything worked well. Then I went with the gloss black so that I could apply the decals. Again, everything went fine. I applied the decals. It was all numbered, looked beautiful. And then I went with this clear matte. And once I did this, something along the line of either not cleaning it, primer wasn't mixed or rattled enough, maybe the gloss coat was, or the gloss black wasn't rattled enough, or maybe this wasn't rattled enough. I'm not really sure. Something weird went down along the way. And once I put this on, it almost acted like a paint stripper. This was a brand new can, so maybe I didn't shake it enough. I'm gonna try it on another project and see if it has that same paint stripping effect. Maybe it's a bad can, I'm not sure. Again, I'm not necessarily looking for speculation. I've kind of got my own. Maybe the paint, something wasn't dry along the way because I kind of rushed through things. So what happened was it started to kind of paint strip everything once I put the matte clear on. So what I did then is put the whole shell into 90% or 91% alcohol, and it stripped everything down to like the gray factory color of the molded plastic. And that gave me a fresh, brand new start. And I said, you know what, I'm not doing the rattle can bit anymore. I'm not exactly sure what happened along the way. And also I wasn't too keen on adding thick layers of primer and then black. I could have probably forgone the primer and just gone with the gloss black. But again, that's kind of a thick paint coming out of a rattle can. So I decided not to screw around, and I went with, I'll show you what I decided to go with. But I decided to go with Vallejo products. So let me get those and show you, and that will get us up to where it currently is. Okay, so what I decided to do is, once it was factory stripped, this is actually the original airbrushed formula that I used. It was, I believe it's the Rust-Oleum primer, and then I airbrushed my New Haven, I forget which orange it is because there's so many variants of New Haven oranges, but it's the one prototypical. I think it might be Saucony Red, I'm not sure, but it's the one that made sense for this paint scheme. And then when I did the flat matte on top of that, everything worked. This paint didn't strip for some reason. I'm not sure why. I can't remember if I did these as separate pieces. I think I did do these as separate. Yeah, I must have done these as separate pieces. So maybe I allowed this to fully dry. Maybe I rattled something a little bit more. I'm not sure. But this was just primed and then airbrushed. And for some reason, the airbrush with that thinner that I had talked about that had the mold or moss in it, that worked. So it probably wasn't the airbrush thinner. Again, since I've started this project from scratch again, I have mixed a whole new batch of it, so it's fresh and ready to go. But again, the cab has been fine, and I believe it's got the Rust-Oleum. So again, it's tried and true method. The flat primer, works. I didn't have a problem with that. So I could almost take this out of the equation as to what the problem was. But again, this is why, I'm not looking for speculation, because I've done enough of my own, and there's so many variables that anybody's speculation could be right or it could be completely off. But you know, again, if I did the cab and then I didn't rattle the body enough, I could have had some problems. So anyways, the cab is as is. But what I used for the rest of the shell is I decided to not screw around, and I went with Vallejo primer. And this stuff, I read some reviews. Some people thinned it down, some people didn't. I used it right out of there, and it worked beautifully. It went on in almost one coat, covered up the gray, you know, molded plastic color, and it looks beautiful. And it's super thin, super opaque, worked extremely well right out of the bottle. And again, it's super thin, so it's not like some big thick Rust-Oleum, you know, gloss black paint that covers up details and stuff. Now, the Rust-Oleum doesn't necessarily cover up details, but it does have a thicker quality to it, so it looks, I think the details get a little softer, if that makes sense. But again, so I went with the Vallejo primer, and then once I get the details in probably early this week, I will take that challenge and do the headlights and the steam generator and air intake. And if I need to prime again, and then I decided I'm going to try, I've never used them before, but I'm going to try these two products. They're acrylic. I decided to go with the acrylic, not the polymer, I think. So I'm going to gloss everything with the varnish, decal it, and then dull it down with the matte varnish. And I'm hoping those two products work. I think I do have to thin these down. I will use my airbrush thinner that I have. Should work, should not give me a problem, but I'm going to do some testing on other things first to make sure that it works. I'm a little skeptical as to, if you thin the gloss down too much, does it still look glossy, or do you have to just do a couple of coats to work the material on, is kind of what I'm guessing. And then the same with the matte in order to dull it down once you get the decals on. So long story short, it was kind of a happy accident that it didn't work, because again, I wanted to add the details. It would have been a pain to do that after the fact. It's kind of better to take your time and get everything on the body as, put in there as best you can, and then paint everything as one. And then I also decided to renumber it, so the original numbers that were on there I'm going to take off. So this has been a long project, and I've been trying to be patient with it. Again, I probably got a little impatient with the rattle can stuff, and then I waited a while for the primer to come in, repaint it, had to strip it, all of that stuff, and now I'm waiting for the detail parts to come in. So it's been a little bit of a long project, and I haven't been working on that much else. I've done a few other little things here and there, but let me show you the other update on another project that's been going on for a little while. So this is the other little project I've been working on. Doing a bunch of puff trees, and I've got a fair amount done. I've finished my bag of fiberfill, the black fiberfill that I got. I've got some in this as well, and I finished up these today. I've got some with the yellow, if you notice, and I started to experiment. I've got this whole big bag of flock and turf green scenery. I don't know what they call this. I guess just flock and turf, or no, it's early autumn blend. Yeah, it's almost, it reminds me of like sofa cushion foam. It's just very chunky, and the yellow is too bright. It's not as yellow as it's showing up on the camera, but it's pretty bright, and it looks very foamy. But what I decided to do is I threw a bunch of it in the glue mixture that I had, and so some of it's just on there to kind of add some texture to some of these things. And I'm not sure as to how I'm going to flock them. I need to get, again, the process of needing material. I need to run out and get more spray adhesive. I think I'm going to go with the spray adhesive route with these. They seem to work better. I use Goo Be Gone for my fingers, to get the spray mount off pretty easily, so the cleanup's not a major pain, and sometimes they wear gloves. But I'm gonna go with the spray mount route with these, because if you dip them in glue again, the glue gets into your flock and it just makes a mess and it doesn't stick as well. So and I want these to be fully covered. So I've got some turf varieties left and some super leaves, but I think I am going to try some of this stuff and then painting it afterwards. So again, I have to experiment, but I've got a fair amount now. And again, my plan is, if you've been following the channel, is to kind of hit this back hill here. And I'm thinking if I start from the back and come down, again, using forced perspective as kind of a way to approach this, if I do the back more solid, it will kind of hopefully feel like it is farther in the distance and kind of help that. And, you know, I might need to take some of these, well, I don't think I have enough to go too far down. But if I can have a nice kind of wall behind here, and then, you know, see how it looks. Again, this is kind of a big experiment to see how it looks. I don't know. There's a few little areas in the back there that I might do some puff trees. They worked pretty well on the other section over here. They don't look too bad here. I kind of like the way they're positioned and layered. The yellow's a little too bright. I might airbrush some of that stuff. I'm not really sure. I need to add some more like underneath in the foreground, underneath the trees, on the rocks a little bit and things, to kind of make a transition. It's not just ground and then trees. This doesn't look too bad, and actually there's no puff trees there, but there are a few in the back here. So the puff trees with actual trees in front don't look too bad. Kind of gets disguised a little bit. I know I had posted this in I think my last update. Somebody posted not to do odd numbers, even numbers rather, because I had 6 there. I guess they counted quickly, which was pretty observant. But I've added 2 more. It's odd, even numbers again. It's 8, but the 2 more realistic ones in the foreground look and kind of blend and make it look better. So I don't know. So that's the next step, is messing around with some more puff trees. But that's pretty much all I've got for this update. I have not done a lot down here. I've been working on my music project, Avmus. I just released another album, so I can put the link, if you're interested, in the description, and you can go take a listen or download the album for free. It's more post-rock than some of my, or most of my other albums. And I'm currently working on another electronic project for my band Avmus, and then also I'm working with a buddy to do kind of a side project as well. So and then I had a performance the week before Halloween with another band, so I've been doing a lot of music stuff, so I haven't been down here lately. I did order another reefer that should be coming in. It's a Lehigh Valley, I believe, and pretty psyched about that. I got a good deal on eBay last week, so hopefully that should come. It's another white reefer, not unlike this one, but it's Lehigh Valley, so I'm slowly adding to my reefer collection. Okay, so fast forward a bunch of weeks. I finally have finished this project to probably the best of my ability at the current time. This update, I apologize, is kind of all over the place, but I have been working on this project on the RS3. I got the parts in. I had some problems with the headlights. I had ordered cal scale. I can show you. They were brass cast pieces, which I've never really worked with, and I'll leave them here. I had a hard time working with them. They're pretty soft, but I used a Dremel to cut them off of the sprue, which is here. And in doing that and gripping that, I bent one of them a little bit. I had hand painted them. It looked fine when they were on hand painted, but one of them was bent, which was bothering me. And when I put it on the hole for the light, you can see in there, If I point right there, the hole that lets the light in from the LED is so small, it wasn't, it just looked very dark and small. So I tried to enlarge that a little bit by hand. They're too small of pieces for me to deal with and too hard of a material to work with. I'm much better with plastic. So I improvised. I have my old 44-ton project. So I took the headlights off of those and trimmed them down. You can see the pieces because these extended back into the body quite a distance. So I removed these parts so they fit into the shell much better and was able to fit them in. They look pretty decent. I'll show you again on the model itself, but that's what I worked with. I did get 2 other brass pieces. I got the steam intake and steam generator part, I guess, the exhaust and the intake. So I guess this is the intake, that's the exhaust. Those were brass. Those were fine because they were just, as is. There was no modification needed. But you can see that headlights, I have to touch them up a little bit with some paint. I painted the insides of them silver because, again, they're a little small too, which I had noticed. You can see this is the other 44-ton project that I had finished. And so they're essentially these, but I have them fit into the body a little bit better. So these, you can see, extend out past the frame. And so these sit better inside. So if I give you that profile, you can see they sit inside better. So they don't come out or extrude out. So they work. I need to get glass. I have glass for one of them, the plastic glass part, and then one of them I'm missing. So I'm not sure. I'm going to try to cut one by hand and see how that works. So I still have the glass to put it back in, or plastic lens part. So that should hopefully make a difference. I weathered it up. I have to do the walkway a little bit because it looks too dark compared to the rest of it, and it should be much more weathered. You can see the frame here is not fully seated into the walkway here. There's a gap. That's just because the clips have broken off from a while ago, so it doesn't hold it in there. The decals came out great. I had no real issues with the decals, and the numbering went well. I did lose the number on one of these, on one side. I forget. I can take it off here. I think it's on, yeah, it's on the long hood part. And it is, you might be able to see some light leak. I'm going to try to fix that from the inside. You can see light leak there. I'm going to fix that from the inside, I think is my best option at this point. I've kind of worked the outside as best I can. I'm going to turn the headlight off so you can see a little bit better. I kind of lost some of the numbering on the front here. And then there's some miscoloration or discoloration of the paint and weathering around. I don't know if it's even showing up on the front part there, especially over the right grab iron and around the letter or the number board on the front. Not really sure what caused that. Probably some fingerprint or dust or something got on one of the layers of matte that I sprayed. But all the Vallejo products worked well. I thinned I think the gloss I initially did right out of the bottle, and then I thinned it a little bit. And then I know for the matte, I thinned it half and half, and it worked out great. So my recommendation would be to thin half and half. I think that's what they recommend on the bottle. I could be mistaken, but half and half, it worked great. I was a little worried that I would have to layer and layer and layer it to build up that half of material on there to make it glossy or matte, but it actually worked out pretty well with the airbrush thinner at a half and half formula. So again, I'm going to stick with the Vallejo when I do a project like this. I think, I haven't done any body modification. Not that this is really a huge modification. It's just the headlight removal. But it was a little tricky because the headlight was initially the double one, and it was hard to find a center, and I wasn't working with, I struggled with the brass part, and then switched to plastic. So overall, I'm pretty pleased with how this guy came out. I think it's a big improvement. I feel it fits a little bit better prototypically. The numbers, I couldn't find anything but a model. I might be a brass model, I'm not sure, that had 544. I couldn't find any actual prototypical photo or actual photos with that number scheme in this date that I'm working in the 50s. But I think it's much more prototypical than what I had as the Albert scheme. So I'm pleased with how this project came out. The details on the top look a lot better than without them. And I think I'm gonna try to increase the fleet of RS3s. Initially, I had really liked the RS1s, but I don't know, for some reason, maybe it's just all the photos I've been looking at lately, the RS3s kind of are more appealing, and this is my only RS3 model. So I know Athern's got a brand new bunch of New Havens that I'm kind of looking at. So I don't know, overall pretty pleased with how this project came out. That's going to do it for this update. It's been kind of a crazy update. Lots been going on this month, trying to get parts in and stuff, finish this project and the paint disaster I had. So that's going to do it. Wrap it up, and we'll see you in December. I don't have much projects on the line, but we'll see what happens in December, and it's already the middle of November. I did get these 3 reefers preliminarily weathered because I had done some weathering on the body of this, and so I used some of the airbrush paint that I had mixed up for some of these guys. So these came out okay for a start, and I've got a lot more detailing to do, so maybe I'll give an update on how these new reefers have come out. But the Lehigh Valley came in, so I weathered that up a little bit, and then the other last 2 reefers I got. So have a great end of the year, November. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December.